Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues. It's my great pleasure to welcome Yair Ettinger, who is one of the key people who really understands what's going on in Israel today, specifically in topics of religion and state. He worked for 20 years with Haaretz newspaper. He reports on this with Kan 11 news outlet. He's the author of a book that was recently translated from Hebrew into English called Frayed, the Religious Zionist Community and How It's Changing. And he has other works as well, and one about Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and other things of that nature, because he's one of those people who has studied and is able to communicate his ideas and his thoughts so very, very well. So Yair, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for hosting me, Rabbi McCarthy. Thank you very much.
So let me just
Great to
start
be
with a simple question. Frayed, the Religious Zionist Community, How It's Changing. When you wrote the book originally in Ivrit, it was before the Religious Zionist Party, the one that's called Religious Zionist Party, had really risen to its level of prominence and power of today. Is that correct?
Right.
So when I talk about with Israelis, I talk about Tzionut Datit, religious Zionism. I'm always thinking of the idea. Unfortunately, a lot of people are thinking it has to do with the party. When you wrote the book, you're talking about the idea of religious Zionism and the proponents of religious Zionism in general?
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about the movement of Tzionut Datit. And I'm sure that when Bezalel Smotrich just a few years ago called his party, changed his party name from Ha'Ichud HaLeumi to Hatzionut Datit, he knew what he's doing. This is a brand name of a stream. It's a movement. It's a 120 years movement, very important movement in Orthodoxy, in Zionism, in the history of Zionism, and also it's a religious stream. It's really important, Orthodox religious stream. But I think the fact that Smotrich called his party Tzionut Datit is actually another chapter in the book, or another chapter in the drama of Tzionut Datit, of trying to define what is exactly Tzionut Datit. I mean, for sure, Bezalel Smotrich knows that his party is representing just a part of Tzionut Datit, and I think he's well aware of it, and everybody's well aware of it. But still, it's a brand name. So
It's a fascinating piece because I remember still once sitting in a Zionist Congress when I was a lot younger, and for some reason, Yosef Burg sat down next to me. And I had met him before, but I was this a young rabbi from the United States, and Yosef Burg and I started speaking. For those who didn't know Yosef Burg, he was a minister in the Knesset for many years. He was a member of Knesset. He was the face up until his passing, really, of religious Zionism. And we were talking about what religious Zionism is, and he said, we are the bridge. And at the time, said that was one of the tragedies that had happened when religious Zionism decided not to be the bridge anymore, but to be the opposition, to take strong stands and to oppose what was going on in government, as opposed to trying to find ways to bring people together. My guess is that a lot of these things really go back to that time frame, to the time frame of Gush Emunim when it was starting, and afterwards where you started seeing the splits. Today, where do you think religious Zionism is?
So today is really hard to define, because today when you say I am religious Zionist, you are religious Zionist, Dati Leumi, you have to ask what kind of Dati Leumi are you? Are you where are you voting? Where is your shul? Where do you send your kids? Who is your rabbi? Do you have rabbis? Do you ask rabbi? You have shilas for rabbis, or you are autonomous, practicing and observant Jew? And there is a set. What do you wear? How do you look? And there is a really a huge set of questions that you have to ask before you define what kind of Dati Leumi and what is Dati Leumi. And even after that set of questions, which is just it's not in the book. even after you ask all these questions, it's not clear what exactly is Tzionit Dati, and what is the difference in what is the difference? What is his relationships with other tribes in the Israeli sphere? Chilonim, secular, Haredim, ultra-Orthodox, Reform Jews, non-Jews. What is relationships with them? And as I say, even after you ask all these questions, it's not scientific. It's really hard to know what kind of religious people, person are you.
But by the mere choice of the word frayed as your title, even though I assume it's somewhat of a play on the word of the Hebrew title, which was frumim,
right.
Word frayed in English has a pejorative sense. It's something not so good anymore. Things that are problems. And
Right.
so while there's a wide spectrum of religious Zionism, where are the problems?
Okay, so if it's okay, let me say something before the problems, okay?
Okay.
Because we're at a war right now. Something happened in the 7th of October. I don't know if we can elaborate and talk about it more later, but Tzionut Datit, first of all, as a title, Tzionut Datit, and not asking what kind of Tzionut Datit, Tzionut Datit, not the party, the movement, the sociology, the people who are modern Orthodox, Zionist modern Orthodox in Israel are really now in the front, in the front of what's happening now, double meaning front, because tragically, so many people of our friends, of people of Tzionut Datit are paying the highest unimaginable price of that war, much more than their percentage in the population. Okay, and I'm talking about soldiers in the front paying the price, families, widows. It's a huge tragedy what's going on right now. Um, and it's a bad time talking about differences, because this time we're talking about, we have other resolutions and other challenges we're talking about right now, right? So that's just, having said that, it's important to say that. But if you look at people, there was one Makor Rishon, which is a newspaper, a weekly newspaper, considered to be very identified with the sector, with the religious Zionist sector. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, made a list of people who died, who got killed in the war, and said, okay, look at the percentage of the Tim Leumim, of our people in cemeteries. And this, it made a lot of noise, a lot of backlash regarding that, that article. People are really they criticize that, and other people felt that this is real, this is reality. But you know what? When you look at the list, if you insist of looking at the list of soldiers, you see how varied, how uh, the huge spectrum of Tzionut Datit. This is not just one type of people, if you may say so. People come from so many places, from the cities, from settlements, from the village, outside the green line, inside the green line. People were with different views regarding so many issues. And maybe look at it as a good way. It's a plural society, plural state of mind, and people have other different answers to different questions in regarding so many things.
But let me stop for 1 second. So what would be the defining characteristic to at least be within this pluralistic definition of religious Zionism? What's the core that everyone would agree on?
Okay, so I would say, first of all, as I said, Orthodox, Zionist, and somewhat, in some way, modern. Modern means I'm not Haredi, I'm not ultra Orthodox. I'm reading, I'm studying mathematics, I'm mathematics, English in some way. I mean, this is also a little bit tricky because today, in the more conservative parts of Tzionut Datit, these are new questions. Do you teach in schools English and mathematics in the same way? But leave it aside. Generally speaking, modern Orthodox Zionist. If I'm looking at another definition, which I would say all parts of Tzionut Datit would agree with, as I said before, Tzionut Datit is a movement of 120 years. Okay, the first convention of Hamizrahi, that was the movement of Rabbi Reines back in Europe, just 4 years after the first Zionist convention, was there was a sign. Am Israel, sorry, Eretz Israel le'Am Israel al pi Torat Israel, meaning Eretz Israel for the people of Israel by Torat Israel. And these three flags, I would say, all kinds of Tzionim Datim would say we are holding these flags: Eretz Israel, Torat Israel, and Am Israel. The thing is that the changes come. What is your focus? What is your focus? Not in general, but what is your focus regarding specific questions? Specific questions. As you said, Gush Emunim was formed just after the 67 war and mainly after 73 war, right? Gush Emunim we just marked 50 years of Gush Emunim. So at that point, the big ship of Tzionut Datit shift is its goal. And you mentioned Yosef Bug. Yosef Bug, his agenda wasn't so much Gush Emunim. He thought about other things, but the ship shifted to Eretz Israel. Okay, that was the main goal by Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook. He sent his students, pupils, to go to the hills of Judea and Samaria, and the ship was changed. But not everyone hold that Eretz Israel flag that high. Other people thought differently. Let me give you another example of even a clash that happened just in the recent year, 2023. There was the judicial reform regarding, it's not about one of the flags, right? There is no Mishpat Israel. There is no such a flag. But it's a result of so many things in history. What happened? Why Tzionut Datit? Why did Tzionut Datit, or people from Tzionut Datit, as the party Tzionut Datit, as Smotrich, Simcha Rotman, other people, why did they hold that flag so high? Why they were, maybe they still are, the engine behind the reform, behind that reform? And I think that something happened. Yosef Bug told you back in the day that Tzionut Datit is a bridge. Okay, so I think most of Tzionut Datit still think of themselves as a bridge, but something happened. I think in the last year there was a clash. There was a clash between at least part of Am Israel and part of Tzionut Datit. And this is something new that we didn't see before. Not this. I would say it was very intensive. It was very, very intensive. I think it has something to do when something changed. I think in the recent decades, something broke in the covenants between the tribes of Israel. I think at some point Bezalel Smotrich, for instance, said, "Okay, we feel much more comfortable with the Haredi tribe, this is our people, this is our coalition, and not with at least part of the secular tribe. And we are willing now to rule. And if ruling means clash with part of the left, part of the secular tribe, let it be the clash.
Would you say that
And
using your model of the three different parts of the motto of the Mizrahi, that it was a Torat Yisrael emphasis?
for Bezalel Smotrich, for sure. And if we are looking deep down those three elements, we will find so many new questions that must be asked when you are Tzionit Dati. As I said, everyone holds Torat Israel, but when you hold Torat Israel, what does it mean for you? There are so many, even halachic questions that different people from different parts of Tzionut Datit would answer differently. For instance, what happens with someone who is openly gay in the community? Do you accept him? What do you say? What do you think about all sorts of treatments? What do you say regarding? I mean, you'll see just another word of about LGBT. You'll see in Jerusalem parade in every year. You'll see religious people from Tzionut Datit standing in both sides. Some of them are marching, maybe identifying with. Some of them are openly LGBT, and some of them are demonstrating against the parade. Both of them define themselves Tzionut Datit with Am Yisrael, Torat Israel, Eretz Israel. How do you explain that? This is a clash.
And
Another question. You want to ask something?
yeah, my question is, I understand those differences, and I understand that the world itself, the Torah world itself, the Orthodox Jewish world itself continues to expand in many different ways. But how does that, where is the difference? From a sociological perspective, it's fascinating. But tachlis, the fact that there's splitting, what does it make a difference to us?
The thing is that for many Datim Lumim, there is like the ideal that we are one sector, we are one force, we are, I don't know, we follow Rav Avraham Yitzhak Kohen Cook, but we have different answers. What is the connection between children that brought that are in Bnei Akiva, in the same youth movement in Jerusalem and in Samaria? It's different people. It's different. They have something in common, but they have so many disputes between them. I mean, I think for some people, this is heartbreaking to understand that it's really hard for people to be at the same place. By the way, Bnei Akiva, look at what happened in politics. We mentioned Bezalel Smotrich. Bezalel Smotrich, I would say his nemesis is Naftali Bennett, which is also, he wears knitted kippah. He's part of Tzionut Datit, and I'm sure he holds the flag of Am Yisrael, Eretz Israel, Torat Israel as well. But he understands it differently. And I mean, what's the meaning of all that? Maybe, I think it's natural. This is natural. But the thing is that if you try to, there is something I call privatization of Tzionut Datit. The privatization means that it's going in so many different angles, directions. Some of them are, I don't know, you could be feminist, you're Orthodox feminist. You could think that the most important goal of Tzionut Datit right now is Temple Mount, and regardless of the Psak Halacha of Rabbanut Rashit regarding Har HaBayit, that means that you don't, it's too holy, as if it's okay to say so, to go to daven in Har HaBayit. But this is a change. This is changing right now. And it's okay to say I'm Tzionut Datit, but I'm Naftali Bennett. It's okay to say I'm Tzionut Datit, but and there is a teenager girl in high school that is taught not to go to the army, to go to Shirut Leumi instead. But in recent years, you see a movement of young girls, women, going to the army, even though they are educated not to do that. And what I mean is that you see so many directions, and it's really hard. If people had before the notion or the thought that it's controlled, there is really like it's a brand name, and there is one way, or it's a very specific, there's one way, specific way to be Tzionut Datit. It's not working that way. It doesn't work that way.
And I think we've seen that though in recent elections. First of all, there's no mafdal.
Right.
There's no national religious party. You find people in Tzionut Datit aligning themselves with almost every party, whether it was a Beit Yehudi, whether it was a Likud. It's just shifted. Is it natural maturation of the idea, or is it just the way the world is today? What's driving it?
Okay. I think, first of all, it's natural. You can't fight it, and I think there is no reason to fight it. You know, there is a place that was just established just I think 2 years ago called Beit Hatzionut Hadatit. It's in Kfar Haroeh, and it's trying to say this is the Tzionut Datit. It's like a museum, educational center. It's really impressive, by the way. But in a way, it's ridiculous because there is no one way of being Tzionut Datit. If you look there there is some kind of exhibition, and all the ladies there are with the kisui rosh, with with shavis. Yeah, right. And if you look at Tzionut Datit today, many, always actually, many women are not wearing kisui rosh. So trying to be like going between the okay, so it's really hard to do that. But if you ask in a deeper, I think as you said, if you look at politics, I think politics it's a limited way of looking at it, but it gives you a perspective, an idea of what's going on. As you said, Rabbi, there are so many parties which you find people who are Tzionut Datit, and they say, I am your authentic represent. I'm your seat at the parliament. I am the authentic Tzionut Datit for you. Vote for me. I could be from Tzionut Datit party. I could be from Benny Gantz's party. I could be from the Likud. Many people from the Likud, and I could be from Yair Lapid's party. Okay, so who is Tzionut Datit? And I think if I think in a deeper sense, I think Tzionut Datit, in the essence, has something much more democratic than even I think rabbis from Tzionut Datit themselves would like to think. People are going for different directions. Sometimes they could be from the coalition, from the opposition. Sometimes you look at them and you see clash, as you saw in the last year. What happened in 2023? You had I don't know, Moshe Topaz from Yesh Atid. He's wearing kippah. By the way, he was with me in Bnei Akiva, the same shevet. Okay, and you see Bezalel Smotrich on the other side, and they have a clash between them. And Naftali Bennett and Matan Kahana and all the people, and there is some kind. It's short answer. I think it's natural. I think it's natural. Still, something happened. The center is broken right now. Because if we had 15, 20 years ago, we still had at least on the paper formalities. We had the monopoly, which is Hamafdal, the party. We had a party. We had Rabbanut Rashit. It was, it's an asset of Tzionut Datit. You know that it has thing with theology. It has a thing with Tzionut Datit. Always said Rabbi Cook formed the rabbinate as, this is the authority. So Rabbanut Rashit, chief rabbinate, is not as it was before. And Chemed, the establishment of Jewish education,
right.
Yeah, the schools. It's not. It has no the authority it had before. It doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the big monopolies went a little bit down. This is something that changed, I think.
Is Tzionut Datit growing?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, is Tzionut Datit growing? In other words, we're redefining, we're expanding. I would assume that the number of people identifying with Tzionut Datit has grown significantly.
Yeah. Something quite amazing. If you look, I mean, today, if you go to make a survey regarding Tzionut Datit, what do you think about I don't know, halachic authority? What do you think about Rabbanut Rashit? What do you think about woman in rabbinic? I don't know, whatever. Every question you have, and you ask anything into what do you vote for? You'll have to ask, how do you define yourself? This is something I think even polls people, or people who are experts will ask, are you Tzionut Datit? Are you mainstream Tzionut Datit? Are you more conservative Tzionut Datit? Are you small c? Are you liberal Tzionut Datit? This is something you ask. But so there is the core groups of Tzionut Datit, which is considered to be around, I would say, 12% of the Jewish population of Israel, maybe 13%, something like that. 9 years ago, there was a big research. I think I'm mentioning it. It's 9 years. It's really old, but it was the biggest research I saw in the Tzionut Datit. It was made by Israel Democracy Institute in Tzionut Datit, and it found something really, really amazing. As I said, 12, 13%, maybe today 13, of Jewish population is core Tzionut Datit, hardcore Tzionut Datit, people who grew up in Mosadot of Tzionut Datit, people who grew up in schools, yeshivot, ulpenot, Bnei Akiva, whatever. But if you ask Jewish people in Israel, do you identify with Tzionut Datit? Identify yourself, you find yourself. So 22% of Jewish population, more than fifth of the Jewish population, almost quarter of the Jewish population in Israel, say they identify with Tzionut Datit, meaning this is a very successful movement. They identify with values. They look at their children and they say, "Oh, I don't know, kol hakavod," whatever. But they want to raise their children as Tzionim Datim. But when you ask those extra 10%, what are you really at life? What do you practice? So part of them could be secular, totally secular chironim. Some of them could be masortim, some kind of traditional, but not really observant. And some of them are charedim, ultra orthodox, but they identify themselves. So this is, I think, it's really interesting to. I asked Israel Democracy Institute try to do this survey again, this research again, because it was with thousands of people. I think at some point we'll see that, but it's really interesting. This movement is growing. Also, pay attention to the fact that so many people, so in every family of Tzionut Datit, there is every family. I don't know every family, but many families. There are people who are, as people say, off the derech. They're not observant anymore, but still in many ways they are still part of Tzionut Datit. They identify themselves as their politics is with, they would vote for, maybe for Smotrich, maybe for Bennett, maybe for, so Tzionut Datit is really fluid. There is fluid Tzionut Datit, and very Israeli and Jewish. It's successful, I think, but varied.
Yair, believe it or not, our time is up, and I would love to be
Wow.
able to follow up on another time. I'm asking actually for a commitment specifically on that last point you made, why it seems to be that there are families in the Tzionut Datit where there seems to be, so every family has someone who is not following that derech anymore. It seems to be
Right.
even more in Israel than in the United States. But I have to thank you both about the encouraging word that it's growing, but also at the same time of the understanding of the complexity of the world of religious Zionism. I thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to scheduling another date with you to follow
Sure.
up further. So thank you very much. Be safe.
Thank you so much for having me.
Continue to do
And
great things. Remember, the book is Frayed, the Religious Zionist Community and How It's
right,
Changing. Thank you. Have a
that's
wonderful
that's
day.
oh, you
There
see,
it is.
okay, almost, yeah.
Bye-bye.
This is okay. Bye bye. Thank you very much.